We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What is up, Cal fans? It's May. It's basically May, and we are back. As Rob says, we're back, baby. The Bearcast is here.
It's literally April 30th. Like, it's literally 2 hours from now, it'll be May. It's actually already May on the East Coast.
I do appreciate the teasers that Rob puts out there. He's like, and he's going to come back soon. In previous pods. It's like, we're like back now.
It's like the end of Marvel movies where it says like Thor will return. Like that's what I'm doing. Andy will return. He can't stay away for too long. It's not in him. It's not in him.
Just hanging out exactly somewhere else in the multiverse. Yeah. But still involved.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we're not here to talk about Marvel, despite the fact that we absolutely could. We are here because our California Golden Bears concluded their spring game today. And we are going to take advantage of our on-the-field expert.
I wonder who that is.
Learn a little bit about what that was like. And to give an idea of what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the spring game. We're going to look at spring camp. I'm going to call it camp. Not really sure if that's a thing, but spring ball in review. Yep. Just made it a thing. That's fine. We'll talk about some Bears in the NFL and the NFL draft that's going on, and then we'll wrap up. So let's move into the spring game. Set the scene for us, Rob. What was it like?
So, you want the good version or like the underwhelming version? Both. All right. So let me set the stage for the underwhelming version. All right. First, the emails that the Cal Athletics sent and like a lot of the prep like behind it, they were like, like there'll be food trucks and like, other things and a beer garden. And like I think there was one food truck like tucked away in some corner that I think today it's still in a sarcophagus somewhere inside Memorial Stadium. Like we never found it. We never found said food truck. There was a Stella Artois truck that was selling beer right next to the North Gate. Like, the North Gate where the players enter? Like right outside of it, where on the staircases like leading up, they had parked the truck right there and they were selling beer. And then they had tables out like in Golden Plaza, like right on that like deck area, and then before the grass and before the gates, they had like tables set up. So like, I guess that constitutes as a beer garden, like kinda, not really. So that was some of the most underwhelming parts.
We gotta appreciate. We've been duped by this now twice. This isn't the first time we've been duped. Remember when Cal was like, we're going to serve beer at the games and there's going to be a beer garden. The beer garden at the games is also exceptionally underwhelming.
It's like 4 feet long.
4 feet long, but you can't watch the game.
No,
It'd be
there's
way
no
cooler
TVs,
if
no
you
nothing.
set it up in one of those ADA sections. I'm sure I'm breaking a law already just by suggesting that. But let's just say in a hypothetical world where I don't have to worry about that, you take one of those ADA sections and you set up a roped area that you can go, and that's where you put the fake grass in and go and have a beer and look down and look across the whole bay. And then you can set up a different ADA area, like with even better seats, so everybody wins.
I'll make it even easier for you. We keep the current beer garden. Just have like 2 mega-sized projectors up showing the game.
That works.
You know, like when you're at like an A's game or a Giants game, like they have the TVs throughout the like concession, so you can see the game. Just that type of
Cal
setup.
has
But
those
except
Cal
like
has those TVs. They
yeah,
do have those.
they
TVs.
have them on the concourse. Put it outside in the beer garden. There'd be way more people buying beer at the beer garden if there was a way to watch the game instead of sitting out on a very nice lawn overlooking a very nice view.
I've clearly hit a chord. I've
Yeah.
struck a chord. We're moving on.
We're moving on. But okay, that's like the disappointing parts. The underwhelming. Let's talk about like the actual real stuff, right? One was very surprised at the amount of people that showed. I talked to one guy like that was a part of the team, and we were both very surprised at the fan turnout. Like it was a very, very good turnout. A lot of recruits were in town. Not just like guys we want on visits, but just like local 7-on-7 teams, local high schools, just a lot of people on hand to watch. And they had sectioned off a few sections like towards the field, around the 45 to 50 yard line for said players and families and coaches, which was a really nice touch. And so like if you go and rewatch the spring game, when the players come out, there's like 2 sections of like, you know, people just standing. Those are all like high school players, recruits, like high school teams, families, and coaches. That's who was in there. It wasn't like players' families. It wasn't any of that. It was just new guys that they wanted to like get accustomed and in. So I was like, good call, guys. Good call on the recruiting staff. Great one on that one. And then they had a bunch of alumni in town. But before I get to that, let me take one step back and say they said the event started at 12. Practice didn't actually start till 1:30. What they did starting at 12 was the field was open with a bunch of different, it felt like a carnival. Like there were multiple like stations on the field where kids could do certain things, where they could throw a football. They had a jersey with the pads on with the media banner hung on the wall, so you could wear it and take pictures as if you're getting like media interviewed, which I thought was very nice. Way to build the young fandom. And so it was just a lot of that. A lot of kids running around the field, like getting accustomed to the football field being around there. And so it was really nice to see all the kids, the families, like who knows how many generations of Cal fans were there. But you had kids that were just like, like happy to be out and having something to do. So you're getting them acclimated to having fun in a football stadium, right? And so they're not going to be as like, you know, not wanting to go in a regular football season because they had a fun experience. You're linking that and building it towards the future. But then you also had all the older guys and even the college kids and all that come out because they want to know what the new team is going to look like come August. So the variety of fans was great. The cheering, like when things were happening, the touchdowns, all that were awesome. But let's get back to what I was saying earlier about the alumni. Big time alumni were in attendance. Former Cal, I believe running back, right? Russell White was in attendance. Former Cal defensive end and linebacker Lorenzo Alexander are also in attendance. Former Cal wide receiver Jeff MacArthur and current St. John Bosco wide receiver head coach Jeff MacArthur was also in attendance. And then, of course, the marquee star that was in attendance was Cal wide receiver and the Wizard of Returns, Mr. Deshaun Jackson, was at the game as well. So that kind of sets the stage of like just the hype. Like once people realized Deshaun was there, like everyone started crowding to the wall like and like leaning over and like asking him to like take like an autograph and picture and just everyone was there. So it was kind of wild. Just seeing all of that.
It does feel like they took back in the Tedford days. They used to do something very similar to that. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but I remember that Sonny didn't continue that tradition, and it was very unpopular at the time. There's two things. One, there's the I distinctly remember this event where it was like the mothers of Cal football, and it was all these older women that came in for the day, and they had got to like go, and it's just like a hilarious event.
I think
And
that's fun.
and then this, which was it's almost like an open house.
Yeah.
And I love that they oriented the spring game around that, because I think that's super important. And you're exactly right. Like those kids, those are going to be the future fans. Like, welcome to the life. The life chose you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That is great to hear. And then, of course, I mean, the last time I can think of Deshaun Jackson and a practice at Memorial was freshman year in 2007, when we had so much hype that, believe it or not, students used to come to our practices, the last practice before the season started. And it was like, we're like, oh, we're going to be super tight this year.
Yep.
And I remember Deshaun walking. I mean, I know you have your Deshaun story from that day. And then Deshaun walking out of the stadium, walking by, giving me a high five. It's like, this is what college is like. This is going to be great. All right. Well, that's awesome. So the scene is set.
Yeah.
You have alumni there. Let's go to the actual play on the field.
Okay.
I would like to know, were there any surprises just in the spring game itself? We'll obviously talk about camp as a whole, so don't really want like the camp surprise. More specifically in the game, or what you were able to observe.
So one, everyone has to know, by the time you're listening to this, maybe my post might be up on Right for California. I'm not sure yet. But I wasn't in the box, so I didn't have the best of views. Like, I was on the field taking pictures and video the entire day. So that's my vantage point. I will go back and rewatch the spring game at some point, just to get a better feel for it.
I just thought you were going to drop like some huge news. You're like, my post isn't up yet. And then it's just a disclaimer that you weren't in a good position to watch the game.
I wasn't. But I mean, I did talk to Nick, who got to see his first like look at this team. I talked to Avi, like this was his second, I believe, practice. So like there's guys with less views than me, so like they have more fresher takes on what they saw. But I think overall, the team in this particular day, nothing really stood out in terms of just the spring game. It was here's the starters, or like who we think the stars are going to be, exactly who they were. You know, here are the battles in these specific positions, exactly what we thought. Like those are the battle points. Like
there was what about Plummer's throw to the corner? Like that was a nice throw. Like, did that play impress you or no?
Well, so see, I mean, I don't want to talk about that in a vacuum, because that doesn't necessarily talk about his camp as a whole. The throw was great. As an individual throw, I think the throw was solid. Maven Anderson also. So I actually was on that in that end zone when that play happened, and Maven had at least a good 2 yards on the defender. Like, if the ball was thrown anywhere in his vicinity, that was like playing catch. There was no way he was not going to make that catch. So he just needed to make that throw like in that area, which he did. And he was far away enough from the sideline too, where he didn't have to necessarily, it wasn't a tight space to throw it into. But I mean, regardless, still a good throw, still a good decision.
Yeah.
And he pulled the trigger on it, which, and you know, everyone was ecstatic about.
And my thing with it too is the reason why I saw it and was like, oh, okay, this is exciting for me, because of course I've had 4 months away from having to depend upon Chase to win us football games. So I just gonna say how many times have I seen that ball be underthrown?
Yeah.
So for me to see the ball actually be thrown well, despite how open it is, my expectations aren't all that high. It's not hard to get me excited. But the point that you make is very important, which is, especially in this world where we see 1/18th of the whole story itself. It's
Yeah,
important to get that broad perspective that you just brought to us.
Yeah. You see the tagline, and then you see the short lead, and you're like, I know exactly what I need to know. I don't need any more context whatsoever. Zero. Zilch.
Okay, let's move on. Spring game over. Any other, final thoughts here before we transition over to the full review?
It was a fun experience. I think it's the best. It's the most people I think I've seen out on a spring camp spring day under Wilcox. It was also the most fun oriented. Like just the vibes around the stadium were great. It was also a beautiful day in Berkeley, by the way, absolutely beautiful. And just having all the alumni there, like the hype, enough highlight reel stuff that happened on the field where people got a little bit upped. Like us football degenerates, like we're like, yeah, defense is the key to victory. I want to see like stops and interceptions and like plugging the right gaps, and all that. But like, for the average fan who's watching at home or at the stadium or like just really tuned in during football season, like I don't mean to demean anyone, but like realistically, you're looking for the fireworks, right? You're looking for the get your butt off the seats, the 45-yard touchdown runs, the 35-yard or the 50-yard deep shots. Like those are the things, and any touchdown scored, you're looking for that type of
Yes.
excitement.
You're not going to the spring game hoping to see a 3-0 defensive battle.
yeah, exactly. So there was enough highlight reels to keep people interested and into the game, which I thought was perfect. So overall, absolute success. The best spring game atmosphere and just day under Coach Wilcox, in my opinion.
Hot damn. Okay. Let's move on to spring in review. Overall thoughts as the beat reporter extraordinaire for Right for California.
What do you want to know, Andy? What do you want to know?
Well, we obviously can start at the quarterback battle.
Yeah.
Because I saw an article today saying that Kai might be the starter, and then Plummer's coming out leading what looks like the ones. So, what's your read here? How do you feel?
It's so hard because okay, can I get my personal push out of the way? My personal push as a Cal fan, like I really want Kai to win this job. And if you listen to the podcast between me and Nick and Avi before spring camp started, you know the reasons why I'm 100% aligned with Nick. Like if Plummer wins this battle, that's pretty damning evidence and against the offensive staff and their ability to develop a quarterback and to recruit a quarterback. So like I'd much rather run with a sophomore quarterback than like running with a guy who has a higher floor for sure than Kai. As of right now, he's more consistent. He's making the right reads. He's making, the good throws, but doesn't give you a, like what Wilcox always says, right? It's like, is there a category he gives you one more plus in? Like Andy, you and I were in that football 101 thing with him a few years back. And remember how he grades his players? He has that sheet. And it's like there's certain categories where it's like a plus, and like those are additional like attributes that's not normal to that position, or he has uniquely compared to other players in his position. Like that's the thing with me with Plummer. It's that there's no, you're not getting a plus. You're getting like pre Jim Harbaugh, Alex Smith. You're getting just like game manager. Great. He might not lose you any games, but he might not win you one either. It's just.
All right. So
that's what you got.
I want to push back and I think we need to kind of reserve. I'm gonna bookmark this
Okay.
and say that there's a future podcast episode where we talk about this further, because I did listen to that podcast that the three of you had.
Yeah.
And I actually disagree with that take.
Ooh,
that
spicy.
this is because it's, dude, he's a redshirt freshman. Like, they haven't had a tremendous amount of time to develop him, and sometimes it takes more than 1 year to develop a quarterback. I just think that to make a bigger statement on our ability to pick it, it's like, how many redshirt freshman quarterbacks start in college football every year? And I don't know the answer to that. So I think there's, research to be done.
Yep.
But the thing that's very interesting to me, based on, and this is the amazing thing. So I reread Moneyball.
Okay.
And I think this is important context because it made me rethink everything that I've ever said on this podcast.
Adapt or die.
Adapt or die. Exactly. But what it was so interesting in revisiting it now, having read it so long ago, was how much it talked about how poor the eye test is and in evaluating talent. And that's so what, and the reason why I bring that up is I watched Plummer's 2 game tapes.
Yeah.
And what you just described as him as a game manager was not what I saw in the game tape. The game tape, that dude's gunslinging and threw multiple interceptions, but he was putting it out there. And so now my world has been rocked. I'm like, are we at coaching staff that just would prefer to have game manager quarterbacks?
Maybe. And maybe that's the answer. I think you're bringing up an absolute valid point. And I would not have brought it up unless you said it. And I think that's absolutely valid. There has to, it's not mutually exclusive. That's for sure. And they're not on opposite ends of the spectrum. It's a very big gray area because we don't know what the inner workings of how the play calling works, like what tendencies they're coaching. We don't see that, right? Like the whole reason like Moneyball works with baseball is because you have so many statistics to work with. Mm-hmm. And it's based off of more statistics. Like how many times can you get a hit off of a curve? Like it's structured to a degree. Versus like football in evaluating a quarterback, like, okay, yeah, sure, we can say how good is he at throwing short passes, but all right, are his short wide receiver or are his slot like wide receivers all like under 6 foot? Like, are they going against defenders that are 6'2"? Like, or are they 6'5" tight ends that he's missing wide? Like, there's so much context more that needs to be evaluated into those circumstances, which is why it's so much harder, I think, in football to get anything down. I will say, though, I rewatched Moneyball recently, and like Brad Pitt's line when he's talking to that head scout, and he's like, I know you've been in those rooms with those kids. Like, I was one of those kids. You think you know, but you don't really know. And that's exactly where we're at. Exactly. We think we know, but we don't really know.
Exactly.
Like we're literally going off of like what we're seeing on the field. And once again, it comes back full circle of, is that what they're being taught to do? Or is that a personal tendency of his and what he prefers to do? I don't know what it is. So like the only pushback I can give to your comment about Plummer and like the development, like it's never a good look if you're starting at a Power 5 conference team and you get benched and the guy that took your place ends up playing better than you did, and then you transfer out to another Power 5 school. Like sure, maybe there's a couple of diamonds in the rough there, but like when you lose a competition, that's usually, I haven't been in a football team or in that situation, so I don't know.
But immediate example of the opposite of that.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. We also don't know the circumstances.
Baker Mayfield. What about Davis Webb? They both lost. They were both in that position, and then So I mean, yeah. But all right, bookmarked.
Yeah.
It's bookmarked.
Yeah.
We can.
We won't know. We honestly won't know this answer till like mid-September or mid-October next year, right? Or this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd hope we would know it by like early September.
I
All
hope
right.
to know by game 1.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
We're not going to know by game 1.
Okay.
But
did we really go through the overall thoughts? We kind of talked to quarterback. What was?
well, I mean, let me talk about Kai too. I don't want to give Plummer just all the credit. Like Kai, as much I like Kai too, but the only thing with Kai right now is that he's a little jumpy in the pocket. He likes to take off. He has good pocket awareness, but he doesn't have good pocket mobility. So he feels the pressure. And instead of sliding or moving to get out of the pressure, which Jared was absolutely outstanding at, he prefers to take off, and he has the wheels to do it. So, but I haven't seen him in a live tackle situation do it. So I don't know how much of it is possible. Like Chase taking off, like, will he get the yard? Does he have that type of wheels to get the yardage if he scrambles? And then there was a couple of consistency issues in terms of his throws and his decision making. But the one thing for sure is that he has made some of the best throws in camp. He has made some outstanding throws in camp. And like, I found out that I haven't found out if this is like, or corroborated this, but I believe his roommate is Maven Anderson. So the two of them have a really, really good connection on the field. There was one throw in camp where he threw the backside shoulder to Maven down the left sideline, and Maven turned back and caught it, and it was perfectly right where he didn't even need to move his hands. All he needed to do was turn his hips to the ball, and like his hands like moved naturally in front of his chest. Ball was right there. Grabs it, toe touch, inbounds. Catch made 35 yards downfield. So like, he knows where his some of his guys wants the ball. The consistency thing, that's an issue. It's like sometimes he thinks he has this pass, but he doesn't. Of course, context is that he's not making that throw because he's forcing it. It's sometimes you're in the pocket and like one of your tackles or guards like eclipses with a linebacker, and you just don't see him. And you just make that throw to the outside, and it's like batted down by an outside linebacker, or it's picked off. So yeah, I would need the videotape from like his helmet to like see what he's seeing. But that's the thing. That's why I think Plummer's actually ahead of Kai in the depth chart. I think Plummer is probably going to be the day one starter if the season started tomorrow. There's still a lot of summer left and a lot of fall camp left to be played, and he could explode. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now, where Plummer has the higher floor because he has played college football. He has a little bit more experience. The game definitely comes slower to him than it does to Kai, and he's definitely excelling in the decision making. It's just the arm talent of Kai, you definitely see. Like there are moments where it comes out.
Okay, love that. Specifically because I learned a lot. But now we've talked over the quarterbacks.
Okay.
I read a lot about Jaden Ott as someone who was kind of popping to observers.
Yeah.
How true was that?
Yeah, I would not be surprised at all if he's the starter come mid-season. Not at all. Would not. Would it for me as a person who has receipts on some of the other running backs be saddened? Absolutely. But would I be surprised that they made that choice to go that route? Absolutely not. I honestly believe the situation you have right now is like when we were freshmen. It's the Justin Forsett there, and by Justin Forsett, in my eyes, I mean like, guys like DeCarlos Brooks and Chris Street and Damian Moore kind of being that three-headed monster there. And then you have this electrifying freshman come in named Javid Best, who like just has moments of individual brilliance, and you're excited to see what it looks like in year 2 or year 3.
And
Damian
Moore had some of that.
Damian Moore did say something.
But we haven't really had. I mean, I think of Marshawn too. I mean, Marshawn number 24.
Yeah,
everyone thinks Marshawn 10. Like
10,
Marshawn
24.
Dude, when he was returning kickoffs, he was electric.
Yeah. It's the butt slightly off your seat because you think something magical is about to happen. And so Jaden brings that. Jaden has a little bit of that. And you know what? Honestly, I think it's the best thing that could have happened to that running back room. I think Jaden coming in, especially in the spring, has jolted that room, and everyone has had to level up their game. And everyone has. But there's certain things that Jaden Ott brings that, or like all those running backs, right? Like I asked AT, did I ask AT? I might have asked AT. I can't remember if I actually asked him or not. But one of the thoughts I had this spring was this might be the most athletic group of running backs we've had here in quite some time, just across the board. And these guys were here for the last couple of years, but they were just log jammed behind guys like Christopher Brooks and Marcel Dancy, right? So let me you go through the rundown, right? Like Damian Moore, basically the elder statesman of that group, has the most snaps, has the most carries. He actually came out and told us what his injury was last year. Like it was something to do with his shoulder, and it was just done. But he still played through it.
Did that happen on that Washington play?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah.
That was a really hard hit.
Yeah.
And now the linebacker who made that hit is on our team.
God, the reporters asked that every single time, like the first 2 weeks with Sermon and Damian Moore, and I looked at one of the other beat writers and I just shook my head. I was like, when are we going to get over this? It's like people asking Ryan Glover about Usher. Like, how many times can we possibly ask him about it before it's no longer asked?
Apparently, so many times that
not
he's
enough.
Now transferring.
Yeah,
he's over it.
Yeah, he's over it. But yeah, I mean, you see, so Damian Moore's that guy, and then you see DeCarlos Brooks and Chris Street, they're absolutely making strides, and so you can make the case. And then Ashton Stredick too, you saw his athleticism today, and the entire running back room's going crazy as he's making that run down that sideline to end the spring game. Doesn't get the touchdown, but he just ballerina tiptoes it as he goes out, and then Jaden Ott's right there behind him, and then you got Ashton Higgins. Is it Ashton Higgins? I think it's Ashton Higgins coming in. No, Ashton Higgins is a basketball player. Anyways, you got that other running back coming in the fall too. So that room is stacked. I honestly think that you might have another guy come. You might have one more guy transferring due to attrition. Because I honestly can make the case for any one of those top 4 guys to start. Anyone. I don't know how you're going to give them enough snaps. I honestly don't. It's a very nice conundrum to have if you're an offensive coordinator. I'm just glad I don't have to make that decision.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
But all of them are great. All of them are absolutely stellar. The added thing to the running back room is that the fullbacks actually look like they're ready to go. We had 2 fullbacks on the roster last year. They barely played, but I think they're physically now ready to play. I think they weren't filled out enough to play the fullback position as a true fullback in this offense and making those downhill hits and blocks. I think the two of them can. You saw Bo Tagalog getting a fullback dive today, getting a touchdown, like just totally just moving the pile. Love it. Gotta love a nice fullback dive, 2 yards from the end zone. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the running back room is probably the most talented we've had here. I'd say probably since like the Lasco Calfani Muhammad combo. It's probably the last time we've had this much like electricity in the room.
I mean, for me, that doesn't even. I'm not gonna. I still feel like, to me, that group wasn't even that memorable. Like Lasco, Calfani, they're generally disappointing. I mean, obviously, like most of the Dykes area was just absent of good running backs. But I think, I mean, only one I can really think of that was like Laird was pretty legit. But hopefully going back into, I'm trying to think, 2011.
Shane,
EC.
Yeah, Shane and EC.
EC and Anderson.
Yeah. CJ.
So I think, based on what you just said and knowing the talent of running back that we've been getting in each recruiting cycle, I agree. Pretty excited about that group, and based on what I just heard, even more excited. Okay, so that definitely checks our box off for most excited to see more of. What's your one concern going forward? If you had to choose one, and I'm only limiting you to one, so you can think about it, take some time. I can,
Honestly, I'll make a decision, but here's the two that like I have to make a decision between, and it's between the O-line and the defensive backs. And I'm gonna
DBs.
I'm gonna lean towards defensive backs.
What? Why?
And so here's my concern. All right, let me flesh this out for you.
Please do, because I am beyond confused how a group that has Daniel Scott returning to it and Lou Magia-Hearn still a part of it.
Yeah.
How that this is a group that we are concerned about.
My concern here is, okay, so here's the thing. We all know that O-line is an issue, right? And there's a lot of holes that need to be plugged, especially with Mettauer transferring, Daltoso gone, Will Craig no longer being on the team. There's a lot of holes. Like left tackle needs to be shored up. Left guard needs to be shored up because we're probably moving Ben Coleman to left tackle. So I guess that alleviates left tackle. And then you got like right guard. You got center done with Cindy. But then, right guard's also an issue. And then right tackle is also an issue. So you got guys that can come in and fill, like Yemtegard's taking snaps, Romy's taking snaps. Who are the other guys taking snaps? God, I'm blanking. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that are taking snaps, and a lot of guys there have taken snaps at said positions over the last 2 years due to injuries. So I'm more worried about them from a game playing perspective, and can they actually start playing well when we start playing games? And I'm more than certain that they're going to start dipping into the transfer portal to get starter quality offensive linemen, particularly an offensive tackle, in my opinion. So that's why I'm less worried about that. The reason I'm worried about the DBs is the most. Can you tell me how many cornerbacks we had on the roster for spring? Healthy cornerbacks.
No.
Can you take a guess? How many cornerbacks?
6.
Close. We had 5. So 5 cornerbacks to cover 2 spots plus nickel. That means these guys were playing heavily. Like a lot of these guys were playing heavily because we didn't have enough bodies to rotate like out. So my concern, I mean, we have guys like Jeremiah Irby and Cam Sidney coming in the fall. So that adds 2 more bodies into those slots. But look, Craig Woodson, who we thought was probably going to be the starter at safety last year's is still out due to injury and recovering from injury. Like he hasn't participated in the spring, right? So that takes off another safety. And then you have Colin Gamble, who was out and hasn't practiced, right? He was out for the spring. So that takes out another cornerback. So my issue here is that we don't have the depth back there outside the starters. And that is a big concern to me because injuries always happen. And if we lose one defensive back starter wise, like in terms of experience, it's a pretty severe drop off. If those two guys aren't ready to go by season start, like the two DBs that are
Who are
injured.
the starters? Isaiah Young and Hearns?
You would have to.
Gamble would start because he
Gamble would start,
started
but
for a bit.
he's still injured, right? So it would have to be Isaiah Young and Lou Hearns, and then it would probably be Miles Williams and Daniel Scott at safety with Ray Woody, the first one off the bench.
So it's, I mean, the talent's there. It's just a matter of can we stay healthy?
Well, I mean, look, you also have to look at like who was playing corner and stuff beyond. Like Fatu Iosefa was great. Evan McGlurkin was great during camp. But like for me, like just to be a little skeptical, like is it a thing of them actually getting better, or is it just that they started to look good because they're getting so many snaps? I just don't know. Right?
Or you just not trusting you're just not trusting that our offense was making them work hard.
Yeah, or that too. Yeah. And it makes them look good because they're getting pass breakups. So yeah, that's my concern is depth there. Depth and experience there. We lost a lot off the top. Particularly a corner with Colin being out, and then all these guys like transferring out, like Jalen Martin going and Chiggy going. Like it's crazy how attrition has severely depleted probably our strength over the last 4 years. But that's why I'm kind of scared for that team because like you're looking at the roster right now, like one injury to one of the DBs, and it's like all of a sudden we have a backup group. Like even as it stands right now. So that's my kind of fear with the defensive backs.
I like it. It's a good pick. It's a deep philosophical pick.
Yeah.
All right, last one here.
Real into the weeds.
All right, or actually I'm going to go shotgun style.
Ooh, okay.
Which new coach stood out the most?
New coach? I mean, there's only two. Two? There's only two? Yeah, there's only two. It's Terrence Brown and Vic and Coach Vic.
In my mind, there's more.
Coach Vic's really fun to talk to. He's great. He's like super friendly. He's super friendly when you talk to him. But like the dude is always wearing sleeveless hoodies. So like, and he's not that far off from like his playing career, right? So like he still has the outside linebacker defensive end build. Like his arms probably make up my entire leg. Like it's insane. But he's so nice. He's such a nice dude. So like I probably have to pick him. It's fun listening to Terrence Brown like talk. Like they had him mic'd up. I don't know if you saw it on the Cal Bears website or their YouTube channel, but they had Terrence Brown mic'd up, and he's such a good talker. And there was one practice where he was like talking to the guys who set up the music, and he's like, "I'm mic'd up today. You gotta play me some of my like LA hits. You gotta play like Tupac." And so I do love that aspect of the coaches. But I mean, there's only two of them. But if I had to pick, I'd probably pick Coach Vic.
Okay, love it. And name one player from spring that you want receipts on going into the season.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Clearly cannot be a running back.
Yeah. I mean, the cheat answer here is a wide receiver. I think that's an absolute cheat answer. Like so you're saying like I can't pick like J. Michael Sturdivant, right?
That's
like that's
well, I mean, No,
Like,
I want someone that like
a little bit under the radar.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want a little bit under the radar. That's what I was thinking.
Maven Anderson would be fine. By the way, I think that would qualify.
I think that's where I'm leaning. I'm just give me a second here. I'm just running through the roster in my head, like at each position, and just going where else could be like a slot. Oh, okay. I got mine.
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor. Grab some extra napkins and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Ricky Correa, defensive tackle. That's going to be the dude. I mean, Ethan Saunders as well. Ethan, I love Ethan. He almost broke my hand giving me a handshake once. It's his hands are ginormous, and like I think Avi said it best. He was like, I saw Ethan play like 4 snaps today, and then like they were like, his impression of the coaching staff was them telling him, yeah, we know what you can do, you're good, sit out, we don't need you to get hurt. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Ricky. He's made incredible strides as nose guard, defensive tackle. He's going to be the starter. People have asked me, like, why don't you think Stanley is going to be the starter? Because Stanley hasn't really participated. Like, he was out injured for today's spring game, too. So, Ricky has definitely taken, like, the mantle of that. And he has the footwork. He has the power. He has surprising agility, which Peter Sherman joked around with me about. Because, so, one camp, they do competition period at the very end, and like, half the team has to run some more sprints if they lose, and it was defense versus offense, and they were running the punt machine, and it got to a point where it couldn't be the hands team, right? It had to be other guys. It had to be the big boys. And so you heard like by like the third person going, because they kept catching balls, by the third person the entire defense is just screaming, Ricky. And finally Coach Wilcox calls on him, and you see this big giant nose tackle dude just walk out there, and then the punt team the punt shoots up from the machine, and he takes like 2 steps forward, and he misjudges the trajectory of the ball, and the ball's going to go behind him for sure. It's definitely behind him. The guy backtracks like three steps and then leaps backwards and high points the ball full extension and collects it and lands on the ground. Everyone just goes nuts. And then the offensive lineman who was picked afterwards didn't catch it. So the offense had to run a couple more snaps. But I asked Sermon about that after the practice, and I was like, were you a bit surprised with how agile Ricky is? Like, are you going to, get him some run elsewhere? And he was like, like people expect guys with that body type to move in a certain way. But some of these guys like move as good as, some of the more athletic guys on the team. It's just you don't think they do because of the body type and the size that they are. So Ricky's doing that. Like, dude, in practice, one of the coolest like motion things I saw was they ran. Okay, if any coach is listening to this, I hope I'm right here. But so he lined up as the nose, and they ran a stunt for him around the edge defender. So, but it was a slightly delayed stunt. So it looked like he was going to drop into coverage and play like a spiral right in front of the guard center. But instead he drops back, and then he loops himself around the defensive end and gets into the backfield. I don't think you see that a lot with nose guards, like having that agility and the burst of speed to be able to loop that. Ricky was able to do it. So yeah, I was very surprised at how much he's grown this camp. That's gonna be my guy. I think Ricky, but Ethan Saunders also is such a good pick. But yeah, I'll go with Ricky.
Nice pick. And we are, just so you know, and so our listeners know, we are rewriting the definition of popcorn answers as we are recording this podcast.
Yeah.
Roxy and Yogi said there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic in Berkeley. Are you believing the hype? Their hype.
Ooh, that's tough. Let me put it this way. I think the stuff that a lot of the media and in terms of Cal alludes to is, one, it's tough to recruit here, right? And two, like, Wilcox just did not have the players to be able to be successful here. Like, that's what they kind of allude to. If you listen to like Pac-12 Network games, or you listen to Cal games on, Fox or ESPN, that's what they kind of are saying. If anything, this might be the year where he has the highest talent floor of his entire 5-year tenure here. And if he can draw out as much talent and performance out of this group that he did with guys like in 2018 and 2019, yeah, I could buy into that hype. If that's what you're telling me, if that's the trajectory that you're telling me, is that this coaching staff can do that, then sure, I would believe you if you told me that we could get to 8 wins with this team. I would absolutely believe you if that's what you're telling me. If that's the baseline of, yeah, they'll do that. Do you think this team can? Yeah, I think we can get to 8 wins. The question for me is, we've seen now, and this is where you and I have to have a reckoning of, like, we told people to like wait on Musgrave, right? 2020 probably isn't everything that we saw of that offense. Boy, were we wrong. So, like,
we can still be wrong about being wrong.
Yeah, we can still be wrong about being wrong. So that's the thing about Musgrave's offense too. Like, this defense is going to be good. I think this front seven is arguably the best front seven we've seen under the Wilcox era, and will be the best front seven we've seen under the Wilcox era, and probably the last 10 years.
Yeah,
might be the best front seven we've seen in the last 10 years. So, and who was I talking to about this? I think it was Avi. I was like, honestly speaking, this front seven might be top 3 in the Pac-12. If you just look across the board, you look at all the other teams and how much they have to replace in terms of production, we might be top 3. So all of that, we know the defense is going to still be good. That's the question mark, right? Is, can the offense score enough points for us? And Musgrave kind of has talked about and alluded to it too, that like, hey, look, we didn't score enough last year. We weren't explosive enough last year. We want to be more explosive in the pass game this year. And he also talked about like not blowing opponents out. And my thought in my head when he said that was like, you do realize you're the one calling the plays, like, So I'm very curious. I'm very curious as to, like, because remember, we saw all those trick plays in the big game.
Yeah.
We didn't see basically any of that throughout the entire season. So now that we know that stuff is in the playbook, are they going to use some of that stuff out the gate to get us some wins? Like, I was talking to Nick about that, and he's like, I love that they saved all of that for the big game, because it was a big FU to Stanford and like just humiliating them with using these trick plays. But at the same time, so many games throughout last season was dependent on one play succeeding. And if you had this in the book and it could work, one of those plays could have gotten you another win. Like,
well said.
So like, that's what I'm trying to wrestle with here too, is like, how much more balance are we going to see? Remember how like the Nevada game, like, we came out firing and then it was just like run, like, and like try to pass, but not really.
Yeah.
And then when we didn't throw anything deep, and we're like, Bill, throw the ball deep. And then what happens in the TCU game? They come out the gate throwing the deep ball. Like, it's so unpredictable, which I think is kind of great. But at the same time, there's like, from a fan perspective and guys, us that are trying to analyze, like, you can't win by unpredictability alone. You actually have to win with more consistency and winning the easy plays. So like, when the season starts is Bill going to come out and throw a flea flicker at us? Like, in game 1? Or is he going to run inside zone after he goes up 17-0? Like, which one is it? I don't know. I honestly don't know at this point.
Well, the one thing that they did was they went through game by game and they basically said, look at the early schedule. Cal comes out of that 5-0, 6-0, watch out. Obviously, if you look at it now, Davis, UNLV, Notre Dame. So I'm just going to give the L at Notre Dame, despite the fact that I think it'll be a competitive football game. I'm just going to do that.
2-1.
Arizona, Washington State, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, SC, Oregon State, Stanford, UCLA. There's 2 teams on that list that I'm scared of. USC and UCLA. I'm not scared of Oregon with a year 1 coach with 0 head coaching experience. I'm not scared of
Colorado,
Washington resetting with a new coach. I'm not scared of Washington State resetting with an interim coach. I'm not scared of Colorado, who retained their coach. I am not, Oregon State could be one of those that, Jonathan Smith, okay, the offense. That's why I would say there's reasons to be optimistic, because I think you're right. And it was a good call out to kind of point and say, look around at the talent that was lost and where did the talent come from? The talent in the NFL draft for the Pac-12, when I was watching, which is an important disclaimer because I did not watch the entire thing, came from Oregon, Washington, and SC.
Utah.
And
a little bit of Utah.
But they're not on our schedule. So I'm not counting.
Yeah.
But yes, that's it. Totally. Absolutely. UCLA was a couple guys, but like really that's what I saw. And I'll leave it there. Okay. We're going to transition. Bears in the NFL. We're doing this popcorn style, and it's actual popcorn style. I'm giving you 15 seconds on an Apple Watch to respond to each one of these players that I will mention with, you can say something nice, you can say something not nice, you can say something in the middle, but you have to say something. All right.
Hit me.
NFL Draft 2022. California Golden Bears had 2 players drafted. They were both in the 7th round.
Mm-hmm.
Your 15 seconds begins now. Elijah Hicks to the Chicago Bears.
I think it's a great pick. They needed some help on the back end. He's a hard hitter. They love that hard hitting style of players in Chicago, and he'll be perfect for that. Don't know about the cold weather though.
But bear to bear.
But bear to bear, I think it's solid. It's solid.
Plus, we have a good history with DBs.
If you haven't seen his video on the Cal Football Twitter handle, there's a video of him like reacting to him being selected. Go watch that.
Cam Good, Miami Dolphins.
Hey, it continues. Remember Chris McCain, outside linebacker for the Dolphins for a while, and he was actually pretty good for the Dolphins for a little bit. So I think it's perfect for him. I think it's a perfect landing spot for Cam. Would I have liked him with a more defensive like team? Probably, but hey, he might get the chance to showcase some stuff because they're severely lacking in that department.
I totally forgot that the Niners, they hired, what's his name, McDaniel or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Not a defensive coach.
I ruined the 15 seconds. Undrafted free agents. Chase Garbers goes to Vegas.
The Raiders. I think it's great. I was talking to you before we recorded the pod, looking at their depth chart, barring from any trades or other signings, he has a shot to be the number 3 QB on the roster, or even the number 2. There's only 3 quarterbacks on the roster, including Derek Carr. So if he can beat out one of them, he's already on the NFL roster.
Coin Dang, Atlanta Falcons.
Jalen Hawkins is already there. He'll have fun. They love their like speedy outside linebacker defensive ends. Like Vic Beasley was another one of their guys. So like they love that. I think he'll be a perfect fit. And he's from there. He's from Georgia.
Jake Tonjes, Chicago.
The Bears really love our tight ends, huh? Like Ian Bunting. Anyone remember Ian Bunting? Yeah. They took him. And now Jake Tonjes. I'm a firm believer of Jake Tonjes carving out a weirdly like long NFL career. Like some of us are going to look back at this and go like, he was the longest lasting one out of that group. Like kind of like how like some guys we talk about like Steven Anderson, that style. Like we did not think Steven Anderson would be the longest tenured wide receiver out of that wide receiver group, like or tight end. I kind of think Ton just might be that guy.
That's a good point. All right, the last three I'm going to need help with. Trevin Clark.
The Ravens, I believe. Also good pick. He didn't test well in terms of his speed, but he is a very, very good possession receiver. So with them trading away Hollywood Brown, I think they do have a need for wideout. Will he be able to beat defensive backs? Because when he was at Cal, one of his things was being a speed wideout for us. But in the NFL, I don't think his speed is going to translate. So lots of question marks.
Kuko Crawford.
The Indianapolis Colts. Possession speed guy for Matt Ryan if he sticks. But, you know, they already have Pittman there, so they don't need a number one, but they could definitely use a number 3 guy.
And finally, absolutely not least, the taker himself, Josh Drayden.
Riverboat Ron comes through again, man. Riverboat Ron comes through again by picking another Cal guy, UDFA. Jordan Kanasic a couple years ago with the Panthers, and then took him to the Washington Commanders. Now we get Josh Drayden over there. I don't know the depth chart at defensive back for the Commanders enough to make the call, but hey, if anything, the dude was probably the best tackler out of the DBs and the takers. I think all the other takers, if they're listening to this, might have something to say against that. But from what we saw, like the dude plays his heart out. He's great. He's such a nice dude as well. Just hopefully he can stick.
All right, and finally, in the spirit of the movie Encanto, our very own Bruno, my favorite, Makai Polk.
I believe what was it? The Ravens too? Or was it the oh shoot. Or was it the Falcons?
No, I thought it was the Ravens, but let me check. Ravens.
Yeah. I'm very surprised. Very surprised. Because usually when you get invited to the combine, that usually means you're going to get drafted at some point. Right? Because that means the NFL as a whole thinks of you as a top tier prospect. Maybe not first round, but top at that position. But the fact that he went at the very end and did not get drafted, a little bit of yikes. But as we said before the draft, like there's certain stigmas now about like air raid wide receivers, like with the So I mean, I hope he sticks.
I think he will. But that's just, a lifelong Makai supporter.
Yeah. You've been one since day one. You're legit a day one.
All right, and that does it. We are finished just at 1 hour. Is there anything else? I'm going to open this up. I'm going to say it's a loose victory cannon. Anything else that you would like to talk about before we officially sign off?
This is gonna get you triggered a little bit, but I've talked to enough people about this, and the people that I talked to were kind of all in the same boat. So I want some outsider perspective on this. Your thoughts on everything with the Mark Fox stuff that went down a few weeks ago with like Knowlton saying he was giving him an extension. Then he said, no, I actually didn't say that, when the reporter is saying it's a direct quote from you. And then he's just saying that everyone got a blanket 1 year extension. And then he's here, but like no movement in terms of players.
You're going to get me in trouble.
But I do want to know, like, an outsider's perspective who doesn't really follow like Cal basketball that much, but is still invested in the program and wanting it to succeed, right? So
I feel like I might be an outsider, but I'm informed enough through the relationships that I have with you all, and I read Right for California, to know that the the things that were said by our athletic director were almost a myth to me because it didn't actually ground itself in the data that was there. So and to me, it's a very high risk thing for Jim Knowlton to do is to attach himself to a coach that the data doesn't support keeping around. Wilcox, the data supports that we have a competitive program. And if Fox was running a Wilcox-esque trajectory right now and hadn't made a tournament but had been somewhat competitive, this wouldn't have been an issue. But because we have been equal to or barely better than the Viking era, which we were supposed to course correct, the only area that we don't really have that purview into is like, and we have some of it, is there must be something that he's doing really well from a graduation perspective. And that is, but as far as my concern, Cal basketball is an absolute. We tend to use like really drastic headlines about Cal football, and I never agree with them. But if you actually, like, to use one that was done last year, told me that Cal basketball is a nightmare, I would say I agree with that. You know, there isn't a practice facility. I think having gone to USF games this year, I think USF has proven to me that they are putting on an experience at their games that is equal to, if not higher. I mean, definitely not, I'm not going to say equal to, like, I'm talking because I was in their Sobrato section and it was like VIP, but it was ridiculous. Like, and that's what Cal should be doing. Cal should be pushing the envelope of Haas Pavilion. Cal should be creating something for like a VIP section there that does have good food, that does have high, like, made to order cocktails, that does create the environment where I'm going to come in there as a donor and want to invest in this program. I say this all the time on the podcast. Are we creating an investable product? Cal basketball is creating a product that I want to throw away and go to get something else or invest my time somewhere else. And everything that happened, the emails were very confusing as someone who wrote one of them and received a response. I didn't think it made any sense. And I think it's total bullshit that we keep using COVID as an excuse. And I said it here 2 years ago that the second that fans would be in the building, we would see the dire straits that this program is in. And there was no COVID that was preventing people from going to this game because of public transportation. That excuse is garbage and it doesn't hold any weight with me. People aren't going to the game because we don't have a competitive team. The one game I went to, we got blown out by 20 plus points by a Washington team who has Wyking Jones as their assistant damn coach. Like, it's infuriating. And then I read all the articles about, oh, we're missing out on this prospect, that prospect, this prospect, that prospect. Like, how do you possibly get better? And like, Cal women's basketball is going the exact opposite direction. In the sense that it's starting to hit an inflection point. It's reached kind of that low point and now it's coming up. It's very frustrating. I actually don't know what to do about it. I nearly attended a donor event where Knowlton was going to be there and was going to go speak with him about it. And I decided that it wasn't a good idea.
Smart.
So that is it. Very triggered. Okay, that's our victory cannon.
That's how triggered you got Andy. Like, that's how bad Cal basketball is. If you got Andy, like, almost going up to Knowlton in person to make a rant about how bad the team is and how bad the trajectory of the program is. This is wild. If you got Andy in that space,
it's very frustrating to me because it was the one constant. And when we would have it during football season, we'd say, well, at least basketball season is starting soon.
Yeah.
And it creates a void. I mean, it creates a void with our podcast. I went in the Kwanzaa era. I attended, I think
Multiple
it was like 10 or
games.
12 games that one season and was covering it, was doing recaps. Like, was invested, was able to speak about it. And it just, you can see how
just flew
big
away.
of a downstream impact all that has. And like, hiring a Wyking Jones like shouldn't be a death sentence to a program. Like Wyking
Nope.
is not that bad of a coach. He was a good recruiter, and I don't think he's a complete tire fire of a person. Where you would have to say, hey, this program, because of you, this program will have to suck for at least 5 more years. Like, wait, what? Like, that's crazy to me. And basketball resets so much faster than football.
Yep.
You can really change with just a couple of players. And by the way, one of our graduates is absolutely balling out in the NBA right now. And we're just capitalizing on that.
Nothing.
Like, nothing. Not at all. And so it just is, it's very frustrating, and I don't know how to solve it in the sense that, like, if I had the disposable income to be able to come in and say, here's $10 million, like reset this thing, I would absolutely do that, because to me, it means a tremendous amount to the university, like my student experience, and Haas Pavilion is nice enough to be an arena that I think should be first class. I don't think that me going to a USF game, I should be coming out of that being like, damn, I am now more willing to go back to the Zebrato Center. I don't even know how to say it. I just Zebrato. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm as fair weather USF fan as they could possibly come. But going to that experience, seeing what that was like, seeing a team that had a coach that was forward thinking, that was young, the energy that was in that building, and then watching a coach that might have stayed on a more friendly contract to stay in the Bay Area, head out to Florida, and then look at, Gates, going to frickin' Mizzou. And I would even take Kwanzaa back. And I know that's not a popular opinion. I would gladly take Kwanzaa back. He knows that. Yeah. So anyways, all right. This was fun. Rob, thank you so much for answering my endless questions. We will be back at some point, probably to talk about the bookmarked item. And as we close out, this is my first time ever doing this. But as always, hold on. Time out. This has been the California Golden Bearcast. If you found us, well, you've already found us.
There you go.
And if for whatever reason you're just finding us, you can also find us on social, on Twitter, on Right for California, and wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, I'm wrapping it up. And as always,
go Bears.
Go Bears.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.